Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Kainos, unlocking the power of data and AI at Kainos, sharing insights and their approach to data ethics. We're just waiting for some more participants to join, and we'll begin in a couple of minutes. Brilliant, I can see the participants going up, which is fantastic. Just wait for everyone to join. For anyone who's just joined, welcome to today's webinar, Unlocking the Power of Data and AI at Kainos, sharing insights and their approach to data ethics. We're just waiting for some more participants to join, and then we'll begin in about a minute. Brilliant, I can still see the numbers going up, which is fantastic. Just wait around 30 seconds just to make sure everyone's in before we start. Brilliant, I think we'll begin. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name's Ellis Wadsworth, and I'm a Senior Talent Acquisition Manager here at HackerJob. Today, I'm going to be the moderator of the Unlocking the Power of Data and AI at Kainos, sharing insights and their approach to data ethics event. Today, we're going to hear from some amazing experts from Kainos, and you will also gain valuable insight into how artificial intelligence is used at Kainos, including case studies from successful projects, the importance of data ethics, and life as a data scientist and engineer at Kainos. So you'll be hearing directly from their team, which is super exciting. As part of this event, you'll have the opportunity to take part in an exclusive Q&A session and speak directly to the team at Kainos at the end. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you do have any questions during the presentation, type them into the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel. I'll bring them up at the QA section at the end. And then we can go through any questions that we do get submitted. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. Firstly, we have Abhay Shete, Senior Data Scientist at Kainos, and we also have Suzanne Brink, Data Ethicist at Kainos. Abhay, I'm going to pass over to you.
Thank you, Ellis. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. I'm Abhay, and I'm going to be talking about data and AI at Kainos. And I will also be covering a few case studies where AI has been used to solve business problems. So I'm a senior data scientist, and I specialize in natural language processing and information retrieval. And I've applied NLP to solve problems in cybersecurity, in fintech, and now I'm at Kainos. I joined last April, so I will be completing 1 year at Kainos very soon. So so a brief history of the practice. So this practice was set up in 2018, and today we have 29 members, so 16 data scientists and 13 ML engineers. So this is not an org chart, but this slide is to provide an overview of the team structure. So we have the leadership team, which is responsible for the vision and strategy for business development so that we keep getting exciting projects to work on, and also for ethics. So defining a code of ethics and ensuring that it is followed across all the projects. And then we have the sub-teams of data scientists, ML engineers, and data engineers and business analysts. So given a project, a team is formed by members of each of these sub-teams, and they work together to deliver the solution. And they could also be a part of a much wider team, which involves software developers and delivery managers and business process analysts. And then we have the Ideas Accelerator. So this is a platform which allows members of the practice to contribute ideas and to work on concepts which can deliver value to the business. So people can move to and fro from the Ideas Accelerator and live projects. So typically, they could spend 3 to 6 months in the Ideas Accelerator, depending on the project, and then go back to working on live projects. So the Ideas Accelerator also functions as a knowledge repository uh, because some of the concepts include development of modules which can be shared across projects, or defining best practices guides, or just documenting common pain points which are likely to be encountered across projects. So I will be talking about the Ideas Accelerator in subsequent slides as well. So what is it that attracted me to Kainos? So I've mostly been working in startups, and in most cases, I was the founding data scientist, and then I hired few more people in the team. And the largest team that I worked in had just 4 data science members. So when I was interviewing with Kainos, they had about 25 team members, and now we have 29. So that provided an opportunity to work and share ideas with a much larger community. So for example, I'm quite interested in understanding how few shot prompting in language model works. And I was fortunate to find people who share the same interests. So we get together, have discussions, share papers, or sometimes, just keep firing different prompts and just try to understand what on earth is going on over here. So that's an informal way of reaching out to colleagues, but we also have more structured events in the form of technical deep dives and community practice meetings. So in technical deep dives, members of the practice deliver presentations, technical presentations on problems which they have encountered and which they have solved in previous projects. So that is about, so this is about knowledge dissemination. And these meetings are attended not only by members of the data and AI practice, but also from the digital services team, which forms a much bigger part of the community of the company. Sorry, and the reason is they see how these solutions could be used to solve their business problems. And we also have community practice meetings, which is only available to the data science members. So again, this is just a platform for collaboration and communication within the team. And then we have the Ideas Accelerator. So ideas could be in different stages. So it could just be a brainstorming idea, or it could be a very well-defined project. So depending on the idea, the leadership team prioritizes concepts which they would like developed, and then team members shift to the Ideas Accelerator. So again, this provides an opportunity to work with data analysts or with data engineers as well, and just basically expand your reach. So a common expression to describe progression, career progression, is climbing the corporate ladder. So Kainos offers you not only the career ladder, but it also offers a career lattice. So just as an example, you could climb the corporate ladder by starting as a trainee data scientist and then work your way up to become the principal data scientist. But you could also move laterally within the organization and take on different roles. So we've had people who moved from Scrum Masters to UX designers, from delivery managers to cybersecurity experts. And this is also relevant for me because I'm interested in business development along with data science. So the company offers you this opportunity to move or change roles, so which I found is really great. And I've been with this company for a year, and I think that it still retains its startup vibe because there are ample opportunities to innovate given the kind of progress that has taken place in the field of AI in the last year and a half. There are ample opportunities to apply those developments and solve or automate or semi-automate some business processes. If you have the initiative and if you have the drive, the management only encourages you to take it forward. So I think these are some of the factors that have really worked for me at Kainos. So what is it that we offer to our clients? So most organizations are in an early stage of AI adoption. So they've heard of buzzwords like deep learning and neural networks and ChatGPT, but they're not sure as to how to apply these solutions to solve their business problems. So what we offer is we help clients climb the AI maturity curve. And this journey consists of the following steps. So the first one is the strategy, which defines the what and the why. So we've defined organizational priorities, governance objectives, and milestones relating to AI and data at the end of this particular phase. The second one is the ideation phase, or the how. And so we do this by conducting workshops and brainstorm different solutions which can be applied to solve business challenges. The third phase is the discovery phase. So this gets into the nitty-gritty of the problem. So we analyze the data sources and assess the quality needs of the data, because that forms an important part of the AI solution. After the discovery phase, we have the pilot phase. So we build proof of concepts which demonstrate the feasibility or the value of the business proposals. And it's also important to set expectations for the client during this phase, because as opposed to software engineering, where you have a deliverable which works, given that all the use cases have been implemented, in AI, we have the challenge of accuracy and reach, and it's important to set the right expectations for the client, and this is what happens during the pilot phase. And then we have production. So we evolve the pilot into production-ready application, which is deployed in a secure and scalable cloud environment. So these are the stages in which a typical AI project is broken down. And some of the case studies that we will see will cover some of the phases which have been mentioned here. So let's take a look at some of the case studies. The first one is for the DVSA, the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency. So 42 million MOT tests are carried across the UK every year. These tests are carried out by 66,000 MOT testers across 24,000 garages. And the DVSA employs vehicle examiners who are responsible to ensure that the quality of these tests is being met by the MOT testers. And one way of doing that before this solution was designed was just random unannounced visits to garages, and they would take a look at the paperwork for the MOT tests that have been carried out on that particular day. And the solution, which was developed by Kainos, it helped the vehicle examiners better target their visits. So one of the design considerations in this solution was to track individual MOT tester performance and to track the changes in behavior across time. And for that, it's important that the data platform stays up to date and the models are also refreshed on a timely basis. This solution was delivered on the AWS platform, and some of the model features that were used are test volumes, the frequency of the test, the duration of the test, the pass rate for the test, and the disciplinary history of the MOT tester. And after the solution was deployed, it was observed that the visits to garages which had unsatisfactory testing performance increased by 49%, and 1/3 of these visits were marked as highest risk, so red, which resulted in disciplinary action or warning letters being sent, so which was double the amount for the same period in 2018. So just to summarize this project, we applied machine learning to make Britain's roads safer. We leveraged data to improve the operational efficiency because this helped optimize the staff distribution and prioritize the vehicle examiner's daily activities. And this project was acknowledged by the UK Cabinet Office as an exemplary AI project and has won cross-sector digital collaboration awards. So we move on to the second case study, which is MLOps. So we have a data science team. We also have ML engineers, and we execute MLOps projects. So this particular client was in the insurance sector, and they had data analysts working in pockets throughout the organization. They developed models locally using SQL or Python, and they wanted help in productionizing these models. So Kainos recommended Microsoft Azure technologies for this MLOps, and we also selected the tooling which covered the entire process end to end. So from data discovery to the model and the pipeline development, the deployment of the model, source control, performance monitoring in production, and then automatic retraining and redeployment of the models. And we deployed 2 models in production. And as a result, we delivered the solution on Microsoft Azure. We also delivered a shared ML governance framework so that this solution was accessible not only by the data analysts, but also by the engineering and the operations team. So it was incorporated into the business process. And we productionized the customer singularity model and the propensity model. So that covers the second case study. The third case study was an NLP solution for a public sector client, and this was related to automated document classification. So this particular client has almost 200 kilometers of paper documents in their repositories, and it spans a time frame of 1,000 years. So to select records for archival, the client wanted to use machine learning to support human reviewers analyze the collection. So Kainos delivered the solution in 2 phases. The first one was digitizing these documents. So we used Microsoft Azure services for OCR, and then we built classification models for classifying these documents into 15 categories. So we started with a simple bag of words baseline, and we used and we experimented all the way up to neural network based models for classification. And this particular application was delivered within 6 weeks. So we were able to classify 200,000 documents in under 2 hours. And this amounted to handling 350 gigabytes of unstructured data. The next project is again an NLP solution, which was for the Royal Bournemouth and Christchurch hospitals. So whenever NHS hospitals finish delivering patient care, they assign a clinical code for the care that they have provided, and then the government pays the hospital according to this particular clinical code. Now, approximately every year, 30 million pounds is spent across NHS hospitals for this clinical coding process. And this process is largely manual, and it is also quite error prone. And one of the reasons for the errors is these clinical codes follow a long tail distribution. So given the delivery pressures and the long tail distribution, the analysts, it's natural that the analysts commit some errors in trying to navigate through the taxonomy and then matching it to the text which describes the care that has been given to the patient. So during audits, the target accuracy was set at 80%. So that's just an indicator of how error prone this process is. And this particular hospital was spending almost 400,000 pounds on manual clinical coding. And the goal was to automate 70% of the manual coding effort. And as a result of that, we realized that during the pilot phase, that they could have recouped 2 million pounds of missed revenue due to wrong code allocation. So this project, the solution consisted, like we started off very simple. Started off with some regular expression patterns and a rule-based engine. And then we developed classifiers, and we went all the way up to using medical BERT to obtain embeddings for these documents and then mapping it to the appropriate code in the taxonomy. So the benefits and outcomes of this project, we have a quicker payment cycle, and then we have reduced admin costs and as well as increased accuracy, because the coders can now concentrate on the more difficult cases. So this particular solution was a proof of value project. So this is, again, this maps back to the pilot phase of the AI maturity curve. So the client had many science facilities, and they wanted to see if they could use speech to text for taking notes during building inspections of science labs. Now, these facilities have basic checks and facility-specific checks, and very often the building officers have to wear protective clothing as well as masks when they carry out these tests. And all of the data is just handwritten in notebooks, so there is no digital trail, and this also leads to inconsistencies across facilities and departments. So the aim of this project was to explore if we can possibly use speech recognition to replace the manual notebook approach, and we enhanced the language model and added the domain-specific terms to it, and also tested the model under different conditions wherein masks were worn or during normal operations to test the efficacy of the solution. And we also, because this data was transcribed, it was now possible to resolve inconsistencies or to map the different observations to common codes and create dashboards for visualizing this data. So the outcomes of this project were that we proved that it is possible to improve building officer efficiency, because now they're just using speech to text, which is much faster than scribbling notes. And it also leads to improved safety and compliance, because we've reduced inconsistencies in observations. So this proof of value project was delivered within 6 weeks to this particular client. And the last case study is related to Workday. So some of you might have heard about Workday or seen the ads on the telly. So Workday is a cloud-based software system for financial management and human capital management. So Kainos offers services wherein it helps clients in deployments of these Workday solutions. Now, our clients are typically large clients which have multiple departments spread across various geographical locations, and each one of them is likely to have their own business process. So Kainos helps these clients to configure the software or customize the software according to the business process needs. And this takes place through defining configurations or defining the business process through these configurations. And the challenge here is that the number of configurations just scales with the company size and number of departments, and considerable domain expertise is required to identify anomalies manually. So the solution that was developed was using ML-based solutions as well as basic statistical methods to detect anomalous configurations. And the final prediction was obtained from an ensemble of different models. And the outcomes of this project were that we obtained positive feedbacks from clients, and we detected more than 30 anomalies in case of one client. And it was included as a feature for the 2022 product roadmap. The reason for including this particular case study is that this was an ideas accelerator project. So someone just thought of this idea and then developed this solution. So it took between 3 to 6 months, and now it is a part of the product roadmap. So just to highlight that if given that members take the initiative, there is ample scope for innovation or just creating new solutions, which can be beneficial to the business. So what are the projects that I have been working on? So I started off working for the Defense Science and Technology Labs. So this being a defense project and it's quite sensitive in nature, I cannot go into the details of this particular project. So after having spent some time on this, I worked on the Ideas Accelerator. So I looked at two problems. So the first one is semi-supervised learning. So how we could use just 1 or 2% of the labels and get performance that you could if you had all the label data available. So consistency-based regularization techniques allow or enable us to develop solutions where you can get a good deal of accuracy even from partially labeled data. And second project that I've been exploring is how to use natural language and interact with databases. So you ask a question in English, and then the system translates it to SQL and provides the answers. So I've been looking at the Spider Challenge and Project Binder, and looking at ways by which human feedback could be incorporated into these models so that these could be actually productionized. So that's so that covers the case studies from my side. I would now hand over to Suzanne, who's our data ethicist, to take you to the remaining part of the presentation.
Thanks, Abhay. Can I ask you to, yeah, perfect. Bring us on to the next slide. So hi, everyone. Next slide, please, Abhay. I have to ask you to drive a little. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So hi, everyone. Name is Suzanne, and as Abhay already mentioned, I'm a data ethicist for the data and AI practice. And what that means is that I'm working to help embed responsible data and AI principles and practices, and also into how we do our work, and also to bring these to client engagements. I can ask you to, yeah, perfect. So let me talk to you a little bit about what data ethics actually is. Abhay just gave you a whole lot of case studies and proof points really around how artificial intelligence can bring really great opportunities. It can increase efficiency, it can bring higher accuracy to certain diagnostic approaches. The point is, though, that it doesn't necessarily come without risk to introduce these kinds of impressive technologies. It can also go wrong. So I'd like to give you a couple of examples of where we've seen this. The first example is this was a kind of credit card that Goldman Sachs has issued, called the Apple Card. And this was in 2019, where it hit the news because a husband and wife both applied for this credit card, and they shared a very similar financial picture. So they had shared financial assets, they would file joint tax returns, and the wife actually had a somewhat better credit score than her husband. But then what they found was when they both applied to this Apple card at the same time, the algorithm decided that the husband should be allowed to have about 20 times the credit that the wife was allowed to have. So they wondered what was going on there, brought this to Twitter, and then it hit the news. Goldman Sachs responded that really it couldn't be the algorithm saying that because you're a woman, you're going to get lower score, lower credit, because gender was not even information they collected. So it was definitely not a feature in the algorithm. But then the question remains, why then did this conclusion come about? So the algorithm was really quite a black box, making it really difficult to pull apart why this would have happened. And it's an example of how this can get really tricky in practice when an algorithm is making these decisions in resource allocation. So next example, thanks, Abhay. Next example, kind of related, but also a little bit different, is a situation where Amazon had introduced a recruitment tool to its internal processes. This was around 2014, so a couple of years ago. They decided that it would be really cool if they could bring AI in to help them sift out the strongest applicants to their roles. And what they thought they could do is that, look, we have a lot of resumes of really well-performing candidates in our companies, so let's use AI to help predict similar kinds of high performance, pick out from the applicants' CVs which ones are the best applicants among the candidates. And the problem was that many of their current high-performing employees, so people they already had in their company whose CVs they were using to train the AI on, were typically male. So what the AI subsequently learned was that male profiles were good performing employees, and it started to penalize CVs that somehow indicated that the applicant was females. For example, if there was an item saying that they had been the president of the Women's Chess Club or something like that. So once Amazon caught on to the AI doing this, they then went in and removed all those terms that could relate to one gender versus the other, and to try and make it gender neutral. But they actually ended up piloting it through a couple more ways, and they got so frustrated not being able to get it to work completely right that they ended up retiring it, to their credit. But it shows just how complicated this again can get. And then one more example, just to bring the point home, but a different type of example this time, was a situation in 2006 where Netflix had issued a contest for people to improve their recommendation systems. And in order to do this, they made available a really large data dump of ratings and rankings of videos that people had watched on their platform. And they made sure that the data was anonymized. So they replaced names with random numbers. And I thought this way it should be secure, and we can have people work around with this data, figure out new solutions for us, and we wouldn't be giving away anything too sensitive. But the problem was that two researchers from Austin University, they wanted to make a point, and they took this data and they linked it up with data from IMDb, which is an online platform for ranking videos where people often use their actual names. And using those two data sets, bringing them together, they could then re-identify lots of the information from the Netflix data set. And this could then suddenly reveal quite sensitive and personal information, such as if people were interested in media content from that reflected particular political orientation, or perhaps that were LGBTQ focused, or things that could be quite private to people. So it shows just how difficult it can be to also safeguard the privacy of your data when not thinking about it thoroughly. Now, these are just three examples, but in 2022, Hallweg, Younger, and Wen, three researchers, they went through about 106 of these types of incidents, and they categorized them, say what are the kind of categories associated with these sorts of what they called AI incidents. And they found that about half of those kinds of cases were related to privacy, about a third related to bias, 14% related to that black box thinking. So why is this algorithm giving me this solution I don't understand? And another 5% they struggle to categorize. And the reason I'm showing you all this is just to highlight how complicated it gets and also how multifaceted the problems that can seep into AI can be. So what we've done at Kainos, if I can ask you to move us on, thank you, Abhay, is we've drafted out principles to capture all these different angles to the problem. So the 5 delivery principles that we've articulated is, the first one is really high level. It's kind of the umbrella concept, is that we're saying within projects, we want to make sure that we support our clients to minimize harm and to maximize societal benefits of data and AI solutions. It says within projects because actually we have a separate process that's called our Code of Ethics, which helps us think through the kind of work that we are comfortable doing in the first place. So these principles are really about, once we've decided to commit to a project, how we want to make sure we conduct these in a good way. The second principle is around fairness. So that taps into some of those bias cases we've just talked about. We want to make sure that we minimize bias in our data and AI solutions, and we scrutinize them for fairness. The third one is around transparency and explainability. So going into the black box issue, that sometimes AI can be very difficult to understand and to really trace back why certain recommendations and conclusions are being drawn. So here we're saying we commit to communicating with transparency about our data and AI solutions. So being as clear as we can be about what we understand and about the fact that this solution is there in the first place. You can imagine situations where it's not even clear that AI is behind a certain process. And we really care that it is clear to everyone being impacted by certain solutions, but also that we do seek to explore the reasons behind the conclusions of our algorithms. The fourth principle is around respecting the human behind the data. So that says we design our data and AI solutions with respect for the autonomy, dignity, and that's where privacy sits for us as well, of those affected by the technology. And then finally, responsibility. And that is about making sure that somebody takes accountability for the decisions that the algorithm makes. Now, one of the problems with AI can be that you can get into a situation where AI makes part of a process and it makes a decision that's maybe uncomfortable. And subsequently, you get the answer, well, the computer said so, not me. And that's, of course, not fair to the people being impacted by that decision. So it's about making sure that somebody really there's a name to the accountability of these systems and the things they impact, as well as that we help our clients think about where the human should sit in the loop of these systems. So very often we wouldn't necessarily recommend a fully automated system. It does depend on the situation, but often it's very sensible to have a human thinking alongside the computer and scrutinizing some of its output. So moving us on, thank you. How do we then bring these principles into practice? And this is where I'd like to highlight 3 activities that make part of our data ethics offering, how we work these things into practice. So one piece is that we will run harms modeling workshops with some of our clients. And what that means is that we get together with subject matter experts. So this will often be a mix of data scientists. There will be data ethicists facilitating the session. There might be user experience experts on the call, but also domain experts to together brainstorm about what could be the potential harms of implementing this particular solution in this particular way. On the one hand, if it's used the way we were intending it for it to be used, but also if somebody came in not quite understanding what we were meaning with it and maybe using it in ways that were unintended. And then how can we mitigate that? How can we make sure that some of these issues actually don't happen? So articulating that together is one of the pieces we'll do. Another piece is what we call our data ethics assessment. And this is really essentially a sort of checklist to make sure that throughout the development, we bring in checkpoints of making sure we've considered ethics appropriately. For example, when it comes to checking the quality of our data, and if we do have demographics and it's relevant to the use case, have we actually checked on the representativeness of that data? Another question you might get is, do we have actual informed consent to use the data in this particular way? Or have we thought about the transparency needs in this particular use case? In some cases, you can more easily justify using a more complex model, and in other cases, you might actually consider using a more easily interpretable model because of what the algorithm is going to bring to the system. And then finally, we summarize all that activity into a summary report to sort of draw our overarching conclusions about what we found and what we recommend we continue to monitor and consider. So then the final slide for me is just to highlight that we have, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, a more detailed case study on our website of how we've implemented some of this work in defense. And you can just find it on our website, kainos.com, and then going to the Insights tab. What you will find is, and I liked highlighting this one because it also immediately shows how what I've just talked to you about is a general structure behind what we do in data ethics, but every case is different. And in defense in particular, the Ministry of Defense actually has its own dedicated AI ethics principles. So what we're doing with defense is to help them implement those particular principles. They overlap largely with ours in philosophy, but there's some nuances. And this is a situation where we're also being driven by what the customer wants to particularly focus upon. But you'll recognize if you read that piece that we are doing harms modeling in that case. We also have a lot of user researchers that will consider bias from the user research angle as well. So this is a more holistic piece of work that might be interesting to look into. But hopefully now I've helped to give you a sense of the kind of things we are considering in the data and AI practice in particular. And I think this is where we move over to questions, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Abhay and Suzanne, for going through those presentations then. So we've now got some time to go through some questions. So if you want to...
Yeah,
stop sharing your screen, Abhay, that'd be great. So first one for you, Abhay. How has the Kainos team leveraged artificial intelligence to optimize customer experiences?
So because we're not the solutions that we've developed don't involve, it's not a B2C interaction. Our customers are clients who want to improve their business processes. So it's not something that we have. It's not something that we've actually actively looked at, but we have delivered solutions wherein our client interacted or helped in improving engagement with their end customers. So, I mean, it's a good question, but maybe we should develop internal tooling wherein we can help our business. We can help improve the business process of our business development managers.
Brilliant.
I can maybe add a bit. I think you're right, but it's also nice, I think, to highlight that, like I just mentioned in the defense context, we also have a whole user experience team who will often join us. So I think that's one of the powers of when we do these projects in Kainos. It will be a mix of different capabilities. It's also really fun. You get to learn about different ways of doing things, right? So I think whereas I agree with Abhay, we probably could think more about leveraging artificial intelligence specifically to optimize customer experience. There definitely is work done to consider that angle through our user design teams.
Brilliant. And we'll stick with you, Abhay, with our pre-submitted questions as well. So what specific skills and qualifications are needed to become a data scientist at Kainos?
So I think a degree in mathematics or physics or a master's degree in data science is a good start. But I guess that's what most data scientists would have as part of their background. But Kainos, as part of the career lattice, it also offers opportunities for software developers to to become data scientists and ML engineers. So we have internal training programs or fast track programs where they can acquire these skills and then start working on projects as data scientists or ML engineers. So
cool. And just a question from me. What did you start out doing in your career, Abhay? Like, what was the first role in tech for yourself?
yeah, so I started off as a software developer actually,
Yeah.
and then moved into data science, and so it was called text mining at that time, and NLP. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. So question here for Susanna. What are the biggest ethical considerations when using artificial intelligence?
It's a really good question. I think I would refer back to some of the principles we just talked about. So that's where I shared, fairness, transparency, responsibility, and what we call is respect for human behind the data. Sometimes you'll have it, sometimes people call it autonomy or privacy. But I think the real answer here is it will depend on the case. So those are kind of high level categories. And we haven't just, well, for one, we've of course had a discussion internally that we want to subscribe to these principles as a practice. So we have had that discussion, but we are not the first ones to consider these topics prime in this space. So there are many different frameworks and frameworks and principles out there that you will often find will repeat these kinds of themes. Depending on the specific framework, you might sometimes also see robustness or safety mentioned in there. We've decided we absolutely consider those pieces, but to not consider them ethics specific. It's a bit of a choice. But yeah, sorry, long-winded answer to say these are themes that you will hear in this debate a lot. We believe they are important, but it will depend on the specific use case as to which one you might end up honing into. I think you always want to consider them all. But some of them will be more pertinent to some use cases than others.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Susanna. And we'll stick with you, Susanna. So a question from Matthew on the live Q&A. So how does the data ethics role participate in during the AI development cycle? Is there a specific full-time role in the project team, like a BA? Are the data ethic deliverables planned into the project plan as formal deliverables? Yeah,
it's a really good question, Matthew. So I'm going to try and answer this in a not to take too long to answer this question. So the short answer is we have a delivery framework where we have defined all the big activities that we feel are pertinent when we deliver AI, and we have an ethics lens to that. So we have to find those activities. Now, whether it is actually data ethicist delivering those pieces, or it's more embedded in what the rest of the group does, that depends on the project. So in some cases, like the defense scenario I just told you about, we actually have, I'm actually in the project as well these days, actively supporting some of this activity. In other cases, we also have some of these work spread across the team. So it depends a little bit. My role is partially client-facing and partially working to embed these principles into our day-to-day delivery internally.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Susanna. And Abhay, back to you. What are the best approaches for an experienced professional with an MBA and a master in data science to enter the data industry?
I think if you already have those qualifications and that there is a skill shortage, so I think that there is significant demand for people with these skills, and if you can collaborate and have some open source projects or participate in certain user forums and meetups, that provides a chance for networking and again exposes you to wider opportunities. So
okay, brilliant. Sorry, I think the connection was a little bit dodgy then. So thank you for that, Abhay. So back to Susanna from the live Q&A. What advice would you give to a philosophy graduate hoping to enter the area of data ethics?
Yeah, it's I saw that question pop up. It's a really so I love that question. I'm going to struggle to give you a very clear answer because it's such a developing space right now. But there absolutely is a place for philosophy students in this area. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in it, to for one, just read up on some of the policy papers that are out there. So, well, we are focused. We're not solely UK focused, but quite a lot of our clients are. For one, the UK public sector, as Abhay just shared a couple of examples. And in that case, there is a lot of great material out there specific to what the UK government is thinking about in this area. It's about familiarizing yourself with those things, going to conferences, meeting people. It's a space that's on the one hand, ethics is and should have been and is something that data scientists have been thinking about forever and a day. But at the same time, this more defined space of data ethics is relatively new, and the kind of the role title is newer, which means that it's hard to give very clear instructions on how to get into this space because it's all still very much in flux. But I think that's also an advantage. That means it's just a matter of kind of showing yourself in that space, reading up on it, getting to know people, and then there should hopefully be good opportunities there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Susanna. Back to you, Abhay. Do you want to take advantage of GPT APIs within the future?
Yes, not in the future, but in the present. So right now we are experimenting with these APIs.
Yeah.
Right. As I mentioned that in one of the projects, which is using natural language to talk to a database, like whether we use ChatGPT or even one of the models that has the best accuracy, we need to think about how to incorporate the end user feedback into guiding the model. So whether we use reinforcement learning or some sort of a dialogue-based mechanism is something that needs further thinking and research, and that's an exciting field.
Brilliant, 100%. So back to Susanna from the live Q&A. So this is a question for Susanna. As part of the onboarding process for AI projects, do you ask business clients for internal privacy / ethics policies, particularly in the area of health data? Quite a good question there.
Yeah, again, a good question. So I guess it depends a little bit what you mean with do you ask for it? Well, we ask for it because we want to understand it, right? So yes, but it's not so much a process of saying if you don't have a ethics policy in place today, we will not work with you. What we do is we consider in a more holistic sense whether it's a type of project we are comfortable taking on from an ethics point of view. That's the code of ethics process I mentioned earlier. But when it comes to looking at the maturity curve of where people are in that data ethics journey, there's a whole wide range of that. Some clients are quite articulate in it already, have to find their own principles, their own policies, their own concerns. Privacy is a little bit separate because there's a legal component to that. Generally, thankfully, we see that people have considered that they should have. So we would ask questions if we see there's something missing there for sure. But yeah, just on the ethics side, we are happy to support if we find there's still quite a journey to make. So it's not a go or no go decision, but it's something we want to understand to be able to support in the best way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So another one for Abhay here. What programming language is used for data modeling at Kainos, Python or R?
So it's typically it's Python, predominantly Python, and we use PyTorch and TensorFlow, sklearn, and NumPy pandas, and all of those other visualization tools, Plotly, Dash. So yeah, these are the tools which I use.
Okay, brilliant. So I think this might be the final question. Any questions submitted on the Q&A as well, we can get back post event, and obviously this webinar will be uploaded to YouTube as well. So Abhay, we'll finish with this. What advice would you give to someone considering a career in data science or engineering at Kainos? Is there anything that you look for? Let's just say if you are hiring into your team, is there anything you look for from a technical skill standpoint and also like soft skills as well?
Yeah, so in terms of technical skills for a fresh graduate, we're looking at basics that your fundamentals are clear on machine learning as well as statistics. And we're looking for candidates who've taken some initiative during the graduate years or the undergrad years and have worked in internships or have shown some initiative and some projects out there is something that really helps them stand apart from the crowd. So those are things that will definitely work in their favor. But like if they possess strong fundamentals and a drive, and it's something that they can show during the interview process, I think that would be quite beneficial for them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Abhay. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for today. But I just want to say a big thank you to Abhay and Suzanne for their presentation, shedding some light onto the sort of projects and case studies at Kainos. It's been super interesting. I just want to remind everyone that the team at Kainos are actively hiring right now. And as a follow-up, we'll provide the link for their careers page where you can find the list of open positions as well as their benefits. And if you are interested in career opportunities, please register via the form in the email, and we'll come back to you. But yeah, Abhay, Suzanne, thank you so much again. And also I want to thank the participants as well. I think we've had over 50 people watching live, which is brilliant. But other than that, yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.